Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to say thank you to all of our witnesses for being here today. I'm delighted to have a second opportunity today to talk about sustainable investing, but I do have to say that I am a little perplexed about why we're having exactly the same hearing that we had just 4 weeks ago. And I think what is particularly strange to me about this hearing is that we already established a few weeks ago that the topic that we're here to discuss today and the attacks on ESG investing are wildly out of step with the American people, with American corporations, with the market, and with our basic freedoms as Americans. You know, I think it's clear to say that, and I think we've heard today in the rhetoric, that this is yet another crusade in the culture wars against American freedom, but you know, quite strangely against the market itself. And what I find particularly strange about this conversation is that over 63% of American voters actually directly oppose any kind of government interference in investing strategies, and the vast majority of Republicans oppose it as well. And you know, when you look at the bigger picture, when you look at what the American people are actually asking Congress to do, asking businesses and the private sector to do, almost 70% of Americans are in support of actions to address climate change, to transition to a clean energy economy. And for our younger Americans, for young people, they are 2.5 times more likely than the older generations to say this is their #1 issue. So why are we having a second hearing on this topic when we've already established that it really has nothing to do with anything that the American people want us to be working on? But, you know, I think it's a good opportunity to talk about the things that we do care about, which is climate action. That is what the American people are asking us to do. And in fact, that is what Democrats did this last year when we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which we've said time and time again is not only the most significant investment in climate action that this country has ever taken, it's the most significant action on climate change that any country has ever taken in the history of the world. And that is why the president went to bat to protect the Inflation Reduction Act last week when Republicans threatened to tank our economy over the debt ceiling. So it's just completely outrageous to me that we're here talking about this once again. But I think the other aspect of all of this that I find particularly troubling is the veiled commentary about wokeism as it applies to issues of diversity and inclusion. Because what we're actually talking about is women and people of color participating in the boardroom, being in leadership positions, having meaningful jobs, investing in companies who care about that. Why wouldn't we care about that? Do we think that our Fortune 500 companies are actually struggling right now with retaining the kind of historical leadership that they've had? No, they're not. In fact, only 30% of Fortune 500 companies have members that are women, and their boards are disproportionately white and non-people of color compared to the rest of the country. So for those of you who are opposed to ESG and opposed to diversity, you know, I think we have an important message here to say, which is, thankfully, the American people and American businesses disagree. And not only do they disagree because it's the right and ethical thing to do, it's also good for the bottom line, because more diverse businesses, more diverse boards actually lead to more successful businesses. So as a factor in investing, it's not only important to advancing social justice and equity in our society, it's also a factor that we have to be considering when we're making investments and our fiduciary responsibilities. So, you know, we've heard a lot here today, but Mr. Ragopal, I want to thank you for being here. Can you please just help us drive home the point here? Tell us why investors and businesses take ESG into account, and why is ESG important not only for advancing our goals as a society, but also for investing?
So as I've said, you know, quite a few times, ESG simply gives you a richer toolkit of signals that might, and risk factors that might affect a firm's future cash flows and risks. Just a very quick comment on the diverse boards idea. One of the big issues with boards is groupthink. And by and large, it becomes socially very difficult for a board member to question a CEO because the elephant in the room is usually left out. The hope is that people with diverse life experiences, even if they, 10 or 15% of their groupthink fell, I think, that would actually add to corporate accountability, governance, and actually release more firm value.
Thank you. And, just in conclusion, I want to say it's very clear. Americans want climate action. They want sustainable investing. They want diverse work environments and leadership. And the American people want their freedom. And so I appreciate all of you for being here today and those of you who are doing this important work. And with that, I yield back.